Welcome to the woods. A while back I did a video called People and Land, and in it I spoke about what happened before the Industrial Revolution and when the people were taken from the land and put to work in the satanic mills, and how things kind of went downhill a little bit, and how that link between the people and the land was broken, and how they were unable to get back to the land and the reasons why. And I was doing some reading the other day about that period in time, medieval period. And do you realise that an Englishman in medieval England would have worked 8 hours a day for 6 months a year? Spread out, he wouldn't have done 6 months straight, but throughout the year he would have worked for 6 months, and 6 months would have been leisure time. And it got me thinking that from the Industrial Revolution onwards, so from the 1800s onwards, and with all the advancements in technology and mechanicalisation, all those advancements in science, we've actually managed to double the amount of work we have to do to survive. So we went from working 8 hours a day for 6 months of the year, and after all of these technological marvels and advancements, we now have to work 8 hours a day for a whole year. Ludicrous situation. And that's not the only thing that got worse. When the people were pulled from their small communities off of the land to go and work in the towns and the cities, those small communities were completely shattered. So they not only lost the tie to the land, they lost the social cohesion that helped them in a number of different ways. And if we look at society today, where you see things like drug addiction going through the roof, alcoholism, homelessness, depression, anxiety, a whole host of mental health issues, Alzheimer's, cancer, and all of these things attributed to stress and loneliness, atomization, and that can be traced right back to the shattering of communities, which has continued. People left the land and went to the towns. Those towns turned into cities, crowded, full of people, but no community. And it got steadily worse. The houses turned into flats, apartments. People stopped talking to their neighbours. And people became lonely, yet surrounded by people. And we see that a lot today. Young people living their life mostly online. Old people stuck in their homes, not seeing anyone. and those people stuck in the middle where their social interaction is work. Most people I know would be hard pushed to name 2 or 3 people in their road or street. Some don't even know their neighbours. And they certainly wouldn't want to know what was going on in their lives. And that's partly down to the reasons I've just stated, and also down to the fact that we've been taught to be individuals. And we are, to a certain extent. But that's not all we are. We're part of a community. We're part of a people. And that's not taught to us anymore. They've attacked that down to the smallest level, down to the family unit. And even that's been held up to ridicule. They've asked the question, well, what is a family? Anything can be a family. And it's not. And slowly but surely, they've left a whole population lonely, stressed, and with no help or assistance. No neighbours to step in. No learning from the elders in the community. We work longer hours than we've ever worked before. It's a very strange situation we've got ourselves into. When I look at people running around with a smile plastered on their face, trying to convince themselves that they're not really slaves. And I'll quantify that. If we were to go back in time in the UK, when there was slavery, unlike what you may have been told, we didn't rush off to Africa and go and grab a load of Africans as slaves. We used to enslave our own people. But as a slave, the person who owned you would have fed you, clothed you, and housed you. And that was important for him to do that because you needed to be productive and work on his land. And when that was abolished, which I agree with, I don't think one man should own another man, he employed you. And now he paid you a wage. But you had to house yourself, clothe yourself, feed yourself, and make sure you were fit and healthy so that you could be productive. Because if you weren't, you wouldn't get paid. So it went from somebody else clothing, housing and feeding you and making sure you were fit and healthy at no charge, to them paying you and you having to do it yourself. And I find it harder today to see any difference between the two. And I find it quite incredible that so few people ask that in those 200, 300 years of technological breakthroughs and advancements, how is it our lives have got worse? We've obviously taken a wrong turn somewhere. And I think what's coming, what's on the horizon with this great reset is terrifying. Because the people who have been in charge all along and done everything they can to make our lives worse are still going to be the people in charge. And whereas, without a doubt, we're shortly going to be seeing technology taking employment, I'm not sure that's going to work in our favour. So maybe, to cast an eye back to those small communities tied to the land, where the people worked less hours and looked after each other, where wisdom was passed down by the people who had already done the things, the elders in that community. Maybe it's worth looking at how that operated and seeing if something like that couldn't be done again. And I'm not necessarily talking about going backwards. I'm talking about actually learning from things we've already been through. A small society, community, using current technology, mechanicalization, to assist the people, whilst retaining a community structure and a tie to the land. Sounds healthy. Sounds completely doable. Fingers crossed, eh? Speak to you later, people.